Okay. Hello, listeners. It's me, Will Menaker. If you've been listening to the show for a while now, you will know that we are one for one on our LA City Council guests joining the Los Angeles City Council. And it is my distinct pleasure to announce that we are doubling down on this strategy and to welcome to the show candidate for LA Los Angeles City Council District 13. It is Hugo Soto-Martinez. Hugo, thank you so much for being with me.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm very happy to be here.
Hugo, I want to talk a little bit about your campaign, but before we get into that, I was just wondering if you could just talk a little bit about the Los Angeles that you grew up in and like what led you into politics.
Yeah, sure. So I was born and raised in South Central Los Angeles. My parents were immigrants, and when they came to this country, they became street vendors. And so they sold fruit, in Los Angeles, all over the city. And when I was 16 years old, I got hired at a non-union hotel and worked there through college. And right as I was going to graduate, there was an organizing drive to bring the union in, and it was the most transformational experience I've ever had as a person of color in the city, because we literally took power away from the company, and in the process won an incredible union contract. Just really it was really transformative. We took control of our own shop, our own workplace, and it's something that I've wanted to do for a very long time. And so now, 15 years later, here I am. The city has changed a lot. We see grassroots candidates fighting and winning, such as Nithya Raman. And so we want to continue on that amazing work that's been at the grassroots level. And I think we're going to win another seat here for the people in the city.
Yeah, it says here. I mean, you spent the last 15 years with Unite Here, Local 11. Like, what did you like? What did you learn in your experience of organizing that like made you want to take the next step into like a different arena?
Yeah, I always say that there's a sort of a mantra that one of my mentors taught me. He said, what you win depends on the power that you build. Right. And so I think that in the city of Los Angeles, we see so much activity happening across the city, where I think we've built enough power where we can start taking, the city council seats. And so I look at my district that has a ton of DSA members, a lot of people who are active in the community. I come from labor, and so I say, you know what? I think we can bring all these coalitions together and take that seat for the people. And so that's a lesson that I learned as an organizer. When workers come together, they beat a corporation. And so it depends on the power that you build. You build enough power, you can take as much as you want. You got to keep building that power.
How do you take the lessons that you've learned organizing workers and organizing the workplace and apply it to, I don't know, attempting to, I don't know, organize voters or organize a campaign or just get voters in LA's 13th district a part of this campaign?
Well, one of the biggest things that I've learned as an organizer is that it's never about the individual. That it's always about the collective and the involvement of that collective to a greater goal. And so, one of the things that we're talking a lot about in this district is how we're going to take that organizer's approach to engaging voters, but involving them in larger policy fights. And through that process of fighting and collective struggle, they're going to learn, they're going to grow, they're going to get trained, and we want them to be part of this democratic process, just the way we're involved in the union. It's just people doing work and going out there and talking to people and mobilizing people. And so I think that's the vision we're really trying to put out for people.
You've been quoted as saying the union is a vehicle for permanent struggle. What do you mean by that?
Yeah. So like, when when me and my coworkers won the union, one thing that I didn't realize at the time is that it was going to allow us to continuously grow, continuously fight the boss, and just make improvements over time. Right. And so, to give you an example, it's been union now for 15 years. When the pandemic hit, our workers were laid off. Many, high percentage of people were laid off, but because they had a union, because we had a union, it allowed us to fight that corporation in the moment of that need during the height of the pandemic. And so as a result of it, they were able to negotiate, to have family health to maintain their family health insurance through the period of the pandemic. I don't think a single worker lost their health care during that time. And so there's a sense of permanency when you have a union. It's like allows you to continue to fight until that place is no longer there. And so we have long history of these workplaces having 40, 50 years, and workers come and go, but the struggle of the working class continues because you have a union within that property.
I mean, you mentioned hotel workers during COVID. Could you talk a little bit about like the unique situation that COVID presented as it related to hotel employees, but also some of the interesting plans that are regarding the use of hotels for housing at a time when most hotel rooms are empty.
So the pandemic hit our industry the hardest, without a doubt. You think about who was affected: tourism, large conventions, large sporting events. Those are our members. And so during the height of the pandemic, we had 95% unemployment, massive, massive unemployment. And so it was incredibly devastating. We did a lot of things to push back, and we did as best as we can. Many of them have returned, and we passed laws in the city, and we did a ton of work for protection. But during this time, it's like the hotels were empty. They were completely empty. Some even closed. They were just completely closed. And so, during the time there was a movement to commandeer the hotels, because why would you have an empty bunch of empty rooms, right? When we have a ton of unhoused in the streets. And so, that's something we're talking a lot about even now, because even though the places aren't shut down, they continue to be at half occupancy or very low occupancy, and there's still some hotels that are closed. So they could certainly be used right now to protect the most vulnerable.
This is referring to Project Home Key, right? This
Yeah,
is about like LA is getting about $1 billion in state money to purchase unwanted hotels and apartment and office buildings to convert them into housing. Like, what's the status of Project Home Key right now?
yeah. So there was home key, and then there was room key. Room key was the like temporary using of the hotels, and home key is all this money that they want to use to buy motels or hotels. I don't think there's been many purchases of this, and so I don't know. I haven't heard of a single hotel, in at least that I'm aware of, that has been bought and converted over to any kind of housing for the unhoused.
But like, I mean, this is in the context of, I believe LA has something like $2 billion in subsidies to build hotels, for things like their Olympics bid and tourism and things like that, at a time when there's something like a 500,000 like housing unit deficit in Los Angeles. I mean, this is a matter of using public money to create private hotels that are now going unused when there is a homelessness crisis and a housing crisis in Los Angeles.
Yeah, no, the idea is great. I just don't think that I don't think there's the political will, right? It's like when we're doing Project Roomkey, and it was to temporarily use the hotels to house people. Literally, they were like at 10% or closed. In my opinion, it was like foolish to walk away from that money, because they were going to pay, like as if a tourist was there. They were going to pay that money. They didn't do it, and I think it was just a question of question the way people view, like the way owners view their private property. It's like, this is my property. I'm going to do what I want with it, right? They never view it as something that it could be good for the public, let alone commandeering. I think that's even, you're going bridge way too far, right? Because now you're going to have them screaming about private property rights and things like that. But this is a moment where we have to view this as it relates to power, right? Like, does the council, going to use their power, despite the interest of the private enterprise, right, for the public good? And I still, to this day, I think that the answer is no. I think they're just not going to do it. They're gonna listen to big business.
To the question of building power, I want to go back to talk about Unite Here a little bit. Could you describe what Unite Here's rank and file strategy is compared to other unions, for instance?
Yeah, sure. I love our union. If one thing that's very different about Unite Here Local 11, and right, Unite Here internationally, right, because they're in different cities, is that if you walk into a staff meeting, a Unite Here staff meeting in any city, you're gonna walk in that room and you're gonna see organizers who used to be part of the industry. Just in the team that I'm in, it is ex housekeepers. It is at people who used to be cooks, people who used to be front desk agents. That is who is part of who organizes full time, is paid to organize the workers. And so our strategy of the rank and file is constantly looking for new leaders, training them, developing them, and pushing them along a path where they can continue to grow and be stronger and be bigger leaders. And so I don't think there's a lot of unions out there that think that way. And so, one of the beautiful anecdotes is, many years ago we had like sort of this crisis in the union that we had to send out all these organizers all over the country. Like, I think we must have sent like 15 to 20 organizers just from local level. But because we had so many trained leaders working, in the rank and file, that we were able to pull out those 15, and those 15 filled up all the spots of the people that had gone. And I know that there are very, very few unions that can say they have that kind of a deep bench, right? We can just pull out people who are ready to fight and ready trained and ready to go. And so we're always doing that, identifying, developing, and training people like at all levels, no matter where their leadership is at.
So, like when you're engaging in these organizing efforts, sometimes at places where you don't want to let management know, it's sort of like you're trying to keep it under wraps for a little bit. You go to these job sites. I mean, like, what do you look for in a potential leader, or like someone who can do this work of organizing? Like, I mean, what are you looking for, and like and also like what are you hearing from these people that like you're trying to respond to?
Yeah. So one of the, when we're organizing a non-union workplace, I think having the definitions of what is a leader is important, right? People sort of sometimes look for the most outspoken or the most rambunctious, right? Not the way you should view a leader. A leader is it has a very simple definition. Can this person move other people into action? That is the only definition of a leader. Can this person move another person into action? Because a leader is someone that can mobilize, that can influence, that can maintain the solidarity. And so if that person can move another person into action, regardless of their personality or if they're shy or more outspoken, if they can move them into action, they are a leader, and a person absolutely has to be recruited onto the committee to be part of the fight. And so we gotta just always recruiting leaders, always recruiting people that can move other people into action.
And I'm just, can you talk a little bit about the importance of like what a committee means for Unite Here or other union organizing efforts? Like what is a committee, and why is it important for a union effort?
The committee and building the committee and developing and training the committee is the most essential thing in the kind of organizing that I have done. When you go to these workplaces, I don't know any of the workers. I just know there's 150 workers there, but you build intimate relationships. You get to know a lot of people. But as you do it, you're always looking for people who have that leadership, right? Can they move other people into action? And it always breaks down to like 1 for every 10 people. It's just kind of the ratio of the world. It's just kind of how it works, right? And so you're looking for that one leader for every 10 people. And what you do is you get all these leaders together, you recruit all of them, and then that becomes sort of the engine of the organizing drive. It is those leaders.
So that one person is responsible for 10 people.
Correct.
And then you're going to bring in you bring in 10 people, and then what you're really bringing in is 100.
Correct. That's right. That's basically it, right? And so then that committee, now sometimes that committee can be from different departments, and they might not know each other, but you got to bring that committee together and build that community, build that cohesiveness of that core. And if you can do that and you can build that, you're unstoppable. It doesn't matter what the companies can do. If you have the people who move other people into action, you're going to win every single time.
So like another thing I'm curious about is like, okay, so you've been across the table at these negotiation sessions. I mean, like, who comes into these negotiations and you're sitting across from the table? What's that like? What is that give and take process like? And like, do you see any similarities between that experience and that of running for office or politics?
Yeah. So being in that room is, I mean, I'll tell you, like, my first experience with it was, it really revealed who has power in the corporation. Because you're used to seeing your general manager, food and beverage director, whatever, and then you see them and like, oh, that's a very powerful person. But what you realize is that when it's time to bargain and negotiate, they actually don't have that much power. They're just kind of like tools of the corporation. And so they bring in like some big finance guy, or it's usually a guy, just kind of corporate world. It's always usually white men. They bring in their lawyer, and you see like who really moves things for the corporation. And so you get to see behind the curtain, right? Who's really pulling the strings. Um, to me, it was incredibly fascinating to see it for the first time. It just made revealed like how the power works in a corporation. And I think it's very similar. It's like the incumbent I'm running against. I just see him as a symbol of somebody else, right? It's like I know that behind him is someone who who he listens to, right? And that's big corporations, it's big real estate developers, right? And so I know it's I think it's the same thing. It's like we're gonna grab our community, our people, and we're gonna uh, bring it up. The same way we did it in bargaining. I know, there's an interesting story that I have, but I don't know if I have time to share it.
No, please go for it.
Yeah. So one time, for example, we were in bargaining. We're literally in bargaining. We're getting close to reaching an agreement, right? It's like you're moving, you're moving, you're moving, and there was one issue that the company didn't want to give up on, and so we told the workers, we said, they're not giving it up. You got to come down right now. And so the banquet servers, in the middle of like service, right? They're like serving their guests, all decide to come down. The room was a small negotiating room, and so they all went in. They surrounded the company, like they were literally like sitting behind them, crossed. They had their arms crossed, like staring at them, and you could feel like just the company saying like, "Oh shit!" Like we have lost control of the banquet staff, right? Like they're in this room, they're not serving, and our negotiator was like, "Well, as you can see, they're serious. They're serious." And in that moment, they gave up. They gave up what we wanted. We got what we wanted in that moment.
So, I mean, going from the bargaining table to like the larger table of LA's 13th district, which I believe includes Silver Lake, Echo Park, East Hollywood, a few other neighborhoods. Like, about how many people are in LA's 13th district?
Oh, LA's district has about over 200,000 people.
So that's a lot of people. That's a lot of people to organize. So like just coming to that table. I mean, like what is your vision? What are you hoping to like activate the passion or beliefs or imagination of voters in the 13th district?
This is a beautiful district for many reasons. This district voted overwhelmingly for Bernie Sanders. Over 60% voted for Bernie. And if you include Warren on top of that, it was like over 70%. It's incredibly diverse. There's a little Thai town, little Armenia, sort of a large Central American community, which is a lot of different countries, Filipinos. And so, when I see this district, I see a shop, right? I see a hotel, because hotels are also segregated by race and class and positions, right? Age.
In terms of the jobs people do at a big hotel.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Like the room attendants tend to be Latinas, front of house, usually more white. Males are very dominated in one. I mean, it's completely segregated by race, gender, and class. But, we're able to bring people together. And so, that's I've been doing for 15 years. And so when I see this district, I see, I see DSA, which is a very active organization. I'm very proud to say I'm a member for many years. We have the most members in this district. And so we have a lot of very committed socialists that are ready to do the work on the ground. And so we're going to do it the same way. We're going to do, when we do our political campaign, we're going to do a lot of organizing trainings. We're going to teach organizing skills and overlay it with your traditional door knocking operation in any political campaign, right? So we're going to bring these skills in and try to do the same thing: identify, recruit, and train, and just keep doing that over and over and over. And I think over the period of the campaign, which is going to be about a year, I think we're gonna recruit a lot of leaders. We're gonna recruit a lot of people who want to do stuff, and then we're gonna unleash it on the city.
All right. Well, listeners to the show might remember from the Nithya interviews that I did that the LA City Council is somewhat unique in the terms of the power that it wields versus the city councils of every other city in America. There's only 13 members of the city council. They represent about 4 million people. And Los Angeles, the mayor is not in control of the budget. It's the city council, right?
That's right. That's right. We have what we call the weak mayor system.
Yeah, the weak mayoralty system, which means getting a Hugo or a Nithya on the city council is a big win. So like Nithya aside, and any emergent sort of like left wing or socialist bloc on the city council, let's say Hugo becomes city councilman Hugo. What is your vision? Like, what is your agenda? Like, what are the things that you want to get done for the LA's 13th district and the city at large?
Yeah, look. So the one of the powers of the councilman of the council person, right, is that they control what gets built. They control policing strategy. They control, how much affordable housing, how we deal with the unhoused. We do a ton of stuff. They have a huge office, and so I think that when we get into office, we're going to completely restructure how we use our resources in the office. We're gonna train. We're gonna get a lot of folks who are field deputies who are gonna be going into the streets, engaging people. And I think a policy around housing is we're gonna demand more of developers, right? Right now they do like 9%, 10% affordable housing. We're gonna demand 30% at a minimum. We're gonna use our
Also, it also depends on what the definition of affordable housing is. I mean, I know here in New York, like that's always the trick is that for any like if you want to build the Barclay Center, oh, you have to build X amount of affordable housing units alongside with it. But then the affordable housing is determined by the median income of the zip code that it's in, which is like 70 or 80 grand a year, which is not really affordable in the sense that people imagine when they think of affordable housing in a city like Los Angeles or New York.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think you're right. I think the definitions of affordable are completely wrong. But the conversations that we're going to have is not just about affordable housing in like the traditional sense, but how we create social housing, right? Public housing. The city hasn't created a single unit of public housing since I think 1955. Right? It's an absolute disgrace. And so we have to talk about how housing is a human right. It's not simply about just being affordable, but that this should not be something that is commodified, something that is
Right.
profited of, right? And I think when you think about people talk about healthcare these days, I sort of starting to understand that we shouldn't be profiting off of someone's well-being. Well, that same thing is about people's housing. Like that is not something that should be viewed as a profit. And so we're going to have those really serious conversations and try to get to the root of like social inequity in this district.
Yeah, I mean, like I mean, you talk about like decommodifying housing or removing healthcare from like the marketplace. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
what you're really talking about is like when market forces are like management of things, something like housing or healthcare is turned over to market forces. Well, then the market will just be like whatever the market will bear is what you will pay for it.
That's right.
And like that becomes more of a hostage situation because it's like, what amount of money would you pay to continue breathing or to have a roof over your head? And the answer is almost anything. And when people are in a situation like that, then like they're squeezed in every other aspect of their life. And there's certainly, it's not a situation in which like, neighborhoods, communities, people of any kind can really like, unless you're really affluent or wealthy, can thrive or have a decent life at all.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Look, the market has failed working people, right? Like I see it every single day. I work with working people every single day. Before they win a union, I am there in their homes, talking to them, their husbands, their kids. I have seen the working class of the city and how they're being punished for being poor. And so we absolutely have to do something that turns that system upside down, because it is failing most people in the city right now.
Could you talk briefly about your opponent? Who is he, and like, what is their vision for Los Angeles versus yours? And like, when you talk about decommodifying housing in any American city, what you're talking about is taking on the real estate developers and the real estate lobby, which is a big. I mean, like, let's be honest, like they control most of the city politics in American cities. So, like, who's your opponent, and like, how does your vision of Los Angeles differ from theirs?
Yeah. Mitchell Farrell is someone who's been in office, worked in the city for over 20 years, or will be 20 years. And he's been in office for 10. He is completely backed by real estate interests, developer interests, folks who, the gig companies, right? Those folks that brought us Prop 22 here in California. He is absolutely in bed with Airbnb that is causing massive displacement in the city, and I think he's very proud of that. I think he's the criminalization of the unhoused in Echo Park Lake.
What I mean, wasn't he involved with the Echo Park, like the clearing out of the homeless from Echo Park and putting a fence around the whole thing?
Absolutely. I mean, Echo Park was a complete disaster leading up while it happened and afterwards. This is he failed to bring people together on this issue and took extremely punitive approach and kicked everybody out, put a fence, got rid of the street vendors, paid the LAPD over I think close to $2 million in overtime, and through the entire process, only 4 people were housed. That's it, 4 people, in permanent supportive housing. And so it was a complete failure, from the beginning to the end. And so we're going to take the opposite approach to that.
Now, you bring up street vendors, and I know we started out this interview by saying that your parents were street vendors in Los Angeles, but LA has been cracking down on street vendors overall, right?
It is. I have a lot to say about this because, I remember the fight leading up to the ordinance. Nobody wanted to do anything for the street vendors, and then all of a sudden, Trump got elected, and all of a sudden, everybody became a friend of the street vendors because, if you recall, any criminal charge could have led to deportation.
You could get deported,
right?
Yeah.
Right. So all of a sudden, everyone's like, "Oh my God, we have to decriminalize street vending. We can't allow this to happen." And then Trump's gone, and they're back to the same policies. They face constant harassment by the police. They get ticketed every single day. Because
it's just this attitude that like street vendors are almost akin to being homeless. Like to see someone selling mangoes in your neighborhood is the same thing as seeing like a homeless encampment or something like that.
Yeah, I think it's part of a larger larger thing that's happening in especially in this district of pushing working class people of color out. Right, we are banishing them from where they can live. We're banishing from where they can sit, sleep, or lie, and we're banishing them from where they can sell to provide for their families. Like it's just a complete mechanism of banishing working class people of color. And it's truly despicable. And also a personal one for me because my parents were street vendors growing up.
Well, also, it's just like if you think about like the city of Los Angeles or New York or most other major American cities, when you talk about like the things that make up that city or the things that people like about it or have a kind of global influence, a lot of it comes from a food culture that is created by, trucks, street vendors, people like that. And like to get rid of it in favor of what I'm not exactly sure. I don't know, like Starbucks probably would seem to be doing sort of incalculable damage to the image of the city of Los Angeles, even if you care about things like tourism and like growing the economy.
Talk about. Look, I'm a foodie. I'm a self-proclaimed foodie, and one of my favorite activities is just like going out and patronizing small family-owned businesses and the culture and the food that they bring. And it is that's another sort of layer to it, right? It's like it's attacking a culture, like, and that's the Latin American culture, right? You go to Mexico, street vendor is like a part of our life. Like that's just how it is, and it's a culture that we've brought here in the city, and I think it's made it a better city, more beautiful city.
And all those dishes, all that food is going to end up in a trendy restaurant being for like $30 a plate eventually, right?
Yeah.
And like there's nothing wrong with that. Like if someone will pay for it, go for it. But like without that, like you're not going to have the cool new next thing that everyone wants to eat.
Yeah, no. I have a friend who was used to eating $8 tacos on the West Side because you only get them at the restaurant. So I was like, bro, you're missing out.
All right. Well, Hugo, we got to go now, but just for our listeners here, when is the election? And if they'd like to help out in any way, if they're in LA or the rest of the country, what should they do?
Yeah. So the election is no. Thank you very much for saying that. The election is June 7th of next year. That's the primary, and then we hope we'll be in the top 2, and then it'll be in November of 2022. Look, I think that your audience is a national audience, but what happens in Los Angeles will be transported, good or bad, to the rest of the country. That's just kind of how it goes, right? If you've heard of the SWAT team, well, that started in Los Angeles, transported to the rest of the country. And so we're fighting, as I mentioned, a deeply corporate, deeply entrenched in the corporate machine. And so we're going to win by having folks just be a part of volunteering, donating. Donating is very important. Because Mitch might have organized money, but we have organized people, and I know that will always win. And so, folks can go to our our website. It's Hugo2022.com. That's where folks can donate, and check out our Twitter, our Instagram.
We have actually created a special donation link.
Oh, really?
Chapo.
That's
yes,
awesome.
Chapo listeners, Hugo Chapo. The link will be in the episode description when this comes out. So, and yeah, like if you're talking about a district where close to 70% of the people voted for Bernie Sanders, then the power of individual small donations, as for not just competing with, but vastly outstripping the combined forces of the real estate lobby and Prop 22 tech people.
Absolutely. If everyone listening to this gave $5, it would go an incredibly long way in putting a socialist in office and bringing community power to the city. So yeah, I appreciate it.
Hugo Martinez Soto, thank you so much for your time. Best of luck in the primary. We will be following you every step of the way.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm happy to be here, and hopefully come on next time, some other time.
Next time I'm in LA, I'll be sure to drop you a line.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right. Cheers. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Yeah.